You and I have not talked about House of Dragon
Nope. I
at
refrained from
all.
texting you because I knew if I did, we'd get on a tangent. We'd
Right.
have all of our conversations before they were filmed.
Yes, it was radio silent pretty much for like
Yes.
it was vague conversations. I don't even
Yes.
think we even talked. We didn't. I don't even think either one of us even alluded to what the only conversation we had was prior to the that night or that evening or that afternoon
Yes.
about how you just realized
Oh,
that the volleyball league that you signed up for was Sunday nights and your
yes.
first game was at 7:40, 20 minutes before the
That one
season
hurt.
premiere
I
of
did not think
Dragon.
about it. My friends were like, hey, you want to join a volleyball league? And I was like, yeah, I need to find a way to get my body more active, as I talked about, not working out as much as I was
Right.
previously. So I was like, yeah, I'll sign up for this. And they're like, oh, when is it? Oh, Sunday evenings. Me, I don't have anything going on Sunday evenings. That should be fine. I do not know how it slipped my mind until like the day of the game. I think I was talking to Sarah and she was like, what time is your game again tonight? And I was like, oh, 7:40. And then as soon as I said it out loud, it like everything clicked and my
Yes.
eyes just went dark.
Isn't that the worst feeling like where you literally feel your stomach just drop because you're like,
It was
I
so bad.
knew I was forgetting something. Like, how could I even, like, this
Oh,
was so big on my radar, and I just,
I was hurt. I was hurt. So I was a little bit behind everyone, but I still got on. I got home, watched it, saw all the memes, tweeted, retweeted, all of that.
which is it? I mean, I welcome you now into the Game of
Yes.
Thrones
Oh, it was so
live,
good.
global
The
live
memes were
event in
great.
the, is it not? I mean, isn't it is, it is a force. I do not know how these people instantly have jokes and within minutes their stuff is at like a couple like few I mean like thousands of
Yes.
like it is in say 17, 18, 20,000 likes of just you just tell it everybody's just sitting there just like watching it and scrolling through their phone simultaneously
Yes.
like it's impressive like
Yeah,
it's
it like we talked about on our first episode, it adds another layer
yes.
to an already great experience.
Oh
So
gosh, yeah,
yeah, that was great.
it's if yeah, and I know that there's people that are just like, I'm so proud. I've never caved
I've
into the
never
peer
watched
pressure
it
of
ever a second.
like that's it's like okay, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to empathize with that sentiment. Like I just don't feel bullied. It's like I get it. However, like we're
Yes,
not talking about meth. We're talking about watching a TV show. Like
exactly.
it's you're okay. You're okay if you succumb to the peer pressure and watch a TV show. You're not
Right.
this is not self-harm. This is not something that
Exactly. Like, yeah, and they put themselves on such a pedestal because they haven't done it. Like,
I've
oh,
never watched it.
congratulations on not falling into this drug culture of Game of Thrones.
Right. Of enjoying something with the rest of society where
Yeah,
people aren't actually arguing with each other.
right.
You know, like I'm sorry that you're not able to enjoy something where everybody's not attacking. Like
Yeah,
it's there are people there is going I mean like there are criticisms about the first episode and it's from people who like myself have read the books. But it's even then it's not like the vitriol that we'll discuss
right.
later that's happening with the Acolyte. Um
Yeah,
because like that's just not slowing down at all. And so
no,
um yeah, I just everybody enjoys it. Everybody, and the thing is, like, everybody gets together and hates a fictional character. Like,
right.
we're not hating somebody in real life.
We can aim
We're
all of our
not
negativity at someone that doesn't exist.
right. We're not doxing anybody that
Yeah,
possibly, like, there's no real world implications to the hate that you might find for a certain character. Like, you just get to enjoy collectively. Everybody gets to go, yeah, I really hate that guy. And
right.
right now, that guy seems to be Kristen Cole, which he completely
Master of
100% deserves.
Tongues, Sir Kristen Cole.
He is the most hypocritical. Man did not want to be used as a sex toy and is turning out to do that exact thing.
Two queens and or princesses, two queens, yeah, in his lifetime. Maybe he'll ask her to give up the throne and sell oranges somewhere, because apparently that's his dream.
And that when he was talking to Aemond and about like, because when Aemond was like, he was kind of putting Kristen on notice of like, my mom's she speaks out of both sides of her mouth. Like,
Yeah.
just be wary. Like, she's as duplicitous, as they come. And Kristen was like, the person that made her like this is Rhaenyra. And I just thought, my brother in Christ, you sound just like an incel. Like, you sound like
Yes.
you were
Yes.
rejected once, and this lady has colored all of your perceptions from here on
How
out.
many years was that, like 16 years or whatever? Like, she rejected him years ago.
And once.
Once,
Once.
yes, one time. She did not give up everything to go sail away and sell oranges and cinnamon with you, and
Lost
you
it.
crumbled, and now you
And
hate
lost
her.
it in a big way.
Yeah,
Like were you were like, at least, I mean, I would have to watch it again, like as far as like the show itself, and as far as like, I know in the book he's very a huge proponent of Aegon becoming king. Like, he's kind of like pushes him, like, or pushes that family towards the decision they make to have Aegon crowned, and actually
yeah,
does the crowning himself to him. I feel like, again, you are she rejected you once, and you are now like,
yeah.
you're causing, you are one of the main factors of causing this entire whatever was about to happen.
Right. Well, I mean, and then in the first season, after the king died, and half the council immediately starts plotting on how to get rid of Rhaenyra. The one council member like basically stands up and tries to stand up to them, and Cole like slams his head into the marble and kills him. Like, bro, you are not the stand-up citizen that you think yourself to be,
Right.
and we're blaming her for all of it.
For all, like, if only she didn't make me go crazy. Like,
Right.
uh no. Like, so he's widely hated, which is very
Yes.
funny, because then you have on the opposite is Damon is doing terrible things, terrible, terrible
They can
war
never make me
crimes.
hate you, Dane.
Yeah, like terrible war crimes. And everybody's like, I've got zero problem with this. Like, I will just turn my head whenever
Right.
this happens. And he puts on his cloak over his head. When he puts his hood on, I know bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, when he
Don't
puts his
care.
hood on, a heinous crime is going to be committed in the next 10 minutes.
But they didn't, if you notice, like when they said, well, if we can't find him, what do we do?
They
And
cut
they cut
away.
away. So they left it open as to who really made that decision to.
So after I saw the episode and was going through all the memes, and just the conversation on social media, I did see people were upset at how it was handled.
Sure.
And once I did some research, I haven't read the books. It's on my list of things to do, but as I've said, I'm a slow reader, so who knows if we'll ever get there. But I listened. There was an audio clip of someone reading from the book, so I heard how the blood and cheese scenario actually went down,
Right.
and based off that, I do I do feel like they dropped the ball, could have done better. I think one of the biggest things that the writers did was that they compared it to the Red Wedding,
Sure.
and I think they set the bar a little too high. And I realize killing a child, even if they'd done it by the book, I still don't feel like it would have compared to the Red Wedding, because even though killing a child is heinous, it
Right.
was one death, and I don't mean to minimize the death of a child, but the
Right.
red wedding
Angie,
was like a lot, including a baby when they stabbed the pregnant woman.
right. And it's like you kind of had this feeling that it was going to be a tit for tat kind of thing, whereas the Red Wedding felt like
Right,
it kind of came out of nowhere. Like
for
it,
sure.
you were kind of blindsided by his how long he had been holding on to that revenge plot. Whereas like
Exactly.
this, right, like this, it was like,
Yeah, you
oh,
knew
well,
it was
you know,
coming. The
like,
title of
right.
the episode.
Right, right. She just says, I want Aemon Targaryen. I'm like,
Yeah.
somebody's gonna get mixed up in this. Like, that's just
Yes.
not the way it's gonna happen. So having read the book, there's actually also a great podcast or that has goes through the Dance of the Dragons part by part. So even if you haven't read the book, it's a great like in depth for anybody that wants to just listen to it. I'm actually listening to it because I was telling my daughter the other day, I was like, I've read the books, but I was like, I some of these people just remember everything that happened. I'm like, I read this book a year and something ago. Like other things have replaced these
Right.
facts in
That
the
space in
meantime.
your head has been
Right. So it's
has
like
been
I'm
replaced.
listening to it and I'm like, okay, because I know what's coming. Like, oh, okay, I remember the like a lot of the big things from the book that happened,
Yeah.
but I'm sketchy on the timeline it all happened.
Okay.
So I'm always
That makes
like,
sense.
did this happen then or did this now I'm the rumor is, and again, this is for people who have read the book, is there the episode 4 is supposed to be a huge one. Episode 4, for people who have read the book, is supposed to be going into the battle at Rook's Rest, and it's a biggie, and there are some very terrible things that happen. There's a lot of terrible things that happen in all of it, but
Right.
yeah, there will be a major character that is lost at this time. Another major character is going to be severely hurt at this time. Along with again dragons being killed and severely also hurt. So at the same time. So I'm gonna give spoilers because if you haven't read it, you might not want to know, but for everybody who has, you kind of know who is going into this. It's a big Kristen Cole, Aemond, Aegon, and the queen who never or the queen who never
Queen who
ruled.
never was.
Yeah, the queen who never was, yeah.
I've heard
So
rumors about what is going to happen, so I'm sad, but it is what it is.
it is what it is. It is what
What did
it's
you
a
think of the episode as a whole?
um I thought it was good. I thought people's criticisms as far as like I was confused as to how Blood and Cheese got past the guards. And I'm like, well, not really in the book. I mean, even in the show in the first season, they're very clear that Damon knows the tunnels, and especially the rat catcher is going to know the basements and all those tunnels
Right.
because that's what he does. That criticism I found a little weird because I'm like, this getting in and out of this castle is not an issue. They've been doing that. They've been doing that the entire time. Even with even just Game of Thrones, go watch. There are people sneaking around consistently. I thought I'm interested in how the major change that they made with Blood and Cheese, as far as there not being 3 kids.
Right.
It's not that I'm like, oh, well, they should have either showed the kid's head being chopped off, or and there's also there's a way they get her to choose a child that I'm glad they didn't put in the show. You didn't need that. However, having her having to pick between the boys is kind of what drives her mad later on.
Yeah,
And
based off of what
also,
I heard, that made
right.
sense.
And also, there's a huge storyline that goes along with the child's name was Maelor. She has the twins, the Jaehaerys and they all have the same name. I don't know, but anyways, the twins. There's a boy and girl twin, and then she has a third son called Maelor, or his name is Maelor. Later on in the book, Maelor factors in heavily to a storyline, so I'm interested in is if they'll ever have them have a third, because it's again, like it's one of those things where I understand. Okay, like I can overlook changes and stuff that you make, but then only if you can show. I mean, again, you might be able to show me how later on it won't affect the rest of the storylines. Because if you do
Right.
leave this part out with Maelor, as gruesome, I'm not going to give away what happens, but as gruesome as it is, it there's other main characters that kind of factor into all of like what happens to him and all that kind of stuff. It's like I need to see how these dominoes, like I'm hoping that these dominoes don't create bigger problems like we'll discuss in the Acolyte.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm worried that they kicked over a domino that they're not going to be able to explain. But yeah, so like again, I don't care that they changed it. I mean, yeah, you can still have her go crazy because I mean, not only did she have to say, yeah, that's the kid, that go ahead and cut his head off, go ahead and kill him, but then she walks in on her mom getting the royal treatment from, the
Bad things happen when Kristen Cole is not at his post.
or is it the wrong post or serving?
Right, right. Well, it was funny because I had turned to Sarah both times when they showed Cole doing his duty for the realm. And my first thought was, oh, they're both hypocrites. And then I was like, well, she was married to a zombie for the longest time, so
Sure.
maybe she needs this. But I was also like, but also you're hypocrites.
Right. Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
The
I
whole sloppy
enjoyed the
seconds.
episode. Exactly. I enjoyed the episode. I saw that criticism of like how did they navigate it so easily, and I agree that they've proven multiple times that they can. Plus, the rat catcher could probably do it blindfolded. My only thing, and again, this was something that I wouldn't even mention because it's such a non-factor, but you would think that since they are now in times of war, it might be a little bit more guarded. But at the same time, they had no idea that their enemies, or I guess enemy, was there. Like, had Damon announced himself at King's Landing, probably, yeah, it would have been harder. But yeah, the only way I could maybe see people complaining about that is like, yeah, maybe in times of war you'd think it would have been harder. But the as far as everyone is on the
Right.
other side of the realm doing whatever. So that is a very small criticism. People that read the books didn't like how the blood and cheese thing played out. After I listened to the audio clip, I can see why you would have wanted more from that scene. But the episode as a whole, I thought was
Well,
good. The pacing was off, not off. The pacing was different from what I expected.
right.
I expected season two, they're jumping in, blood and guts
Right.
everywhere, and it was more of Rhaenyra was still going through her mourning
Right.
phase. And once I realized that, I could understand why she only had like 6 lines the entire episode, and
Yeah, because from my
wanted it.
understanding, it only takes the season, this episode 1 takes place 10 days after his death.
Okay.
So it's a very like she only has the one line that she speaks. She's very much in
Yeah.
mourning, very much. And I think Rainey's comment to Damon was kind of pointed at that fact of she's like, you didn't even have the balls to tell me about my own daughter when she died.
Right.
Like, I also understand hearing about losing a child from a raven, like, and how it doesn't settle and close anything for you until you see, the actual body and have that, like, I know you, and because it was kind of like Damon was all of us, like we're like, right, let's go, let's
Right.
ready to
Exactly.
attack and everything. And
2
Rainey's is
years
kind of
of
like
buildup waiting
explaining,
for us.
Rainey's was the, like the voice of reason for the
Right. For
audience
sure.
watching, like saying, hey, you got to give her a moment. Like
Yeah.
this makes no sense. Like she hasn't even come to terms with what she's seen yet. So yeah, and the scene between her and her son Jace, where he's crying, she doesn't even say anything. That was
That was a good scene, but that one hurt because you could see he was trying to hold it together,
right.
talking to the queen about like the war that was the impending
Right.
war. But then like the emotion cracked through, obviously, because he lost a brother and she lost a son. I thought that was a really good scene. But
And we got to see Craig and Stark for the first time, which
yes,
he
didn't expect that, how to start the
I was
season.
shocked. I was actually very shocked that that's how they opened up the season, was with him. Again, for book readers, he will factor in if they decide to. I don't. There's a lot of rumors on how many seasons this is going to go. There is a, even though it's not all of Fire and Blood, it's a good. There's enough to make a story out of, as far as, like they were doing with Dance of the Dragons. But yeah, I was surprised that they were, and that they would talk about the death on the other side of the wall, especially since you don't know if Jacaerys knows about it. You don't know if his mother
Right.
has ever told him about the Song of Fire and Ice, or Ice and Fire, and why her on the throne is so important. Like, at what point, because they do talk about how it gets lost, that dream or that vision gets lost, or that warning gets lost down through the ages, because they don't know it in Game of Thrones. So she's the only one that knows it. We know Daemon doesn't know it. We don't know if she's told her oldest about it.
Right.
So, but yeah, to have them talk about the death and the fact that the dragons wouldn't even cross.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, like it was interesting to be back at the wall and see the snow and all of that. And then when they talked about like the dragons, the most powerful force on this planet, won't even go past the wall. I was like, oh,
Right.
So like,
yeah. And the
we were
rumor is that
hinting at
and the rumor is, in the books, it kind of alludes to the fact that his dragon, and I can't remember the dragon's name at the time, actually lays eggs at Winterfell in the crypts, in the dark, the warmer parts of the crypt down there. So the fact that you don't see his dragon while they're at Winterfell, they're actually at the wall, and so the dragon wouldn't even come probably close to the wall, because it's like a dog and sniffs danger. I don't know. But yeah, so you kind of wonder what they're going to lead, again, with.
I mean, the one time they did take dragons over the wall, it got turned into an ice dragon. So
that's still very upsetting. That's gonna be very upsetting. That's gonna, and oof.
That's one of the moments, obviously the Red Wedding and a bunch of other moments, but that was a moment that I wish I was on social media for, because that caught me off guard, because they're like, oh, in here, they saved the day. Well, they rescue them from the brink of death. Good job, Khaleesi. Everybody's hopping on the dragons. We're getting out of here. And then boom, dragon gets stabbed through the heart and drops into the water. I was like, woohoo. And then the way they ended that episode.
Yeah, when they watch you pull it,
when
you watch them pull it out. Yeah. It's people that are attached to these dragons are going to be very upset by this series. There is a reason. Again, this is not a spoiler, because if you watch Game of Thrones, because at that point they haven't seen dragons for a few centuries, for at least 100 years. So you're very well aware that these dragon eggs that Daenerys has in Game of Thrones at the beginning are the first to have been seen, of any kind of, like, even then they're considered stone and they're not even viable dragons. Right. So this is not a spoiler. If you watch Game of Thrones, this is not going to end well.
I made the comment to Sarah in the first season that I was like, it's just interesting when you go from Game of Thrones to House of the Dragon, how the contrast to dragons are just here in House of the Dragon. They just are. People see them flying. It is what it is. You see them flying, you keep walking. Whereas in Game of Thrones, you didn't see them for the longest time. And every time they appeared, it was a big moment for the characters in that scene.
Right.
Like every time a character saw it for the first time, it was a big deal.
Right. They were stunned. Right.
Yeah. And then in this show, it's just like they're just there. They're there.
Oh,
so I literally was like, something happens between now and then that nobody has seen them.
Right, exactly. That they're, like they said, they talk about, like, there's just, even when the rumor of her, where she's at is as far as like, and she's got dragons, are like, haven't seen them. Nobody believes it.
Yeah.
That's just a rumor. That's just to scare us. So yeah, I mean, it's not a spoiler to say there's a reason that everybody's kind of forgotten about them, and that nobody even thinks that they exist or around anymore. And unfortunately, it's because of a lot of what we're going to see in the next season. So I mean, it's going to get not fun. It's going to be like that scene in Star Wars where the Ewok dies.
That's fair. That's a fair comparison.
Like
That one always gets me.
I just now learned they exist, and now they're
Right.
And
now you've taken one from me.
Right. And in this case, it's so I mean, just prepare yourself, people. Like, don't get angry.
Yeah.
They do this. This is what Game of Thrones does. They kill a lot of people and a lot of things to wound
you. As soon as you get attached, they're like, oh, you like this character. All right.
We're gonna make you feel deep emotional things about them, and then we're going to rip them from your life. But yeah, so no, I did enjoy it. I'm eager to see, especially if the rumors are about episode 4 and the Rook's Rest, about how it's handled. It is, I don't want to, like, because people again compared this to, or they wanted to compare this to the Red Wedding. I don't want to compare it to the Battle of the Bastards, but knowing the gravity and how big that battle was, I still don't want to do it, but I mean, like, it might be the only thing that we have akin to it at the moment. Or maybe, I don't know if there's any maybe smaller battles that happened in Game of Thrones that, I don't know. Maybe the one where she shows up and like lights Jaime Lannister's forces on fire, between that and where were they at?
That was
the old
one. That was the first time they saw dragons too, when she flies over that hill with the Dothraki, and you saw Jaime and whatever his guy's name was, their face when they saw it. Like, again.
Was that Bronn?
Yes.
Yeah. And weren't they with like Olenna? It was like the High Garden. Was it? I forgot where they were at. But anyways, they were coming back because they were taking the money. Anyways, that's but yeah, like that scene where, because I mean, like, they do get a shot off at that dragon.
They do.
And, right. So yeah, I look forward to it. I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
But we're gonna switch topics to the Acolyte. Did you watch it this week?
I did. I'm enjoying the show. This episode, I liked that they moved the story forward, but I also felt like, and this is like what someone else said that I agreed with, it felt like this episode was just a lot of nothing that was built up to the next episode. And then, I mean, there were good moments. I would say the last like maybe 10 minutes were really good, but I felt like the pacing of the story was a little off to me. And then obviously the biggest controversy in this one is one that, while I don't think, okay, I'll just say this is one of the controversies that I can kind of see people's point. It doesn't ruin the show for me, but when you have Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi in this show,
who hasn't been born yet,
which I think his Wikipedia had his species age range listed as, I think, like normal human or maybe a little bit longer. This one, apparently they changed it to they can live for 100 years, 200 years or so. It's not a big deal, but it is kind of like, why him of all people? And then the bigger point is, he is specifically the one that started all the controversy, because in The Phantom Menace, he's the one that said the Sith haven't been seen for millennia. So if he is the one that said that line, of all the Jedi Masters that you could have brought in, you decided to pick one that we knew. Fine. Out of that smaller set of Jedi Masters, why was it that one? That is something, to me, when I hear people complaining or criticizing it, I'm like, Okay, that's a fair point. Like, unless at some point in the show they change it to they decide it wasn't a Sith, it was a splinter cell, as something that they literally referenced in that episode. Sure. But again, it's interesting that you would pick him of all people. Now, changing his age range, to me, I'm like, again, it's like, why did you guys do that? But I'm okay, we've changed it. Now his species lives an average of 150 years instead of the normal whatever. Like, okay, weird, but I can live with that. I think choosing him though to be the one that said that specific line is iffy, and I think just the two of those together, this is a controversy that I can at least acknowledge isn't great, but I'm also not sitting here losing sleep over it. But again, I can at least listen to your criticism. Like, yeah, that's fair.
Right. That's fair. That because like you could have picked anybody off of that Jedi Council.
Anybody.
You could have picked anybody just sitting there that even though he might have said it, could have been like, well, maybe I don't believe it, but they never really discussed that on the show. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Right.
and it's like to have named him that and maybe not senior and him give
Right.
birth.
Yeah, maybe
And
it was his dad.
right. And it'd be his dad and his son is like, oh, well, dad was, we never discussed how dad was killed
Yeah.
because, and then so I'm not aware of Sith. But it's again, the criticism is with these things is you are allowed to interpret and do things for the show any way you want. It's the problem people have is when you have so much source material and you choose to ignore it, or you just like it's one of those things where it's a very easy thing to be able to look up.
Right.
Yeah, like that's kind of the problem that I have with like when it comes to Star Wars or comic books or just even stuff in history is at least if you're going to change something, make it something that might take a little bit more than I put it into Google.
Right.
Like that I might actually have to do like some deep, like if it's only mentioned and his age is only mentioned in one book in like just, it, and it's a deep dive book and boy, there's only one edition of this and it was really hard to find. And the one person who has it is online and says it. Okay. But when you have something that is so easily looked up
within 15 seconds, because I didn't watch the episode the night it dropped because I think they release at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays. And I'm usually like, it's the end of my day. I don't feel like watching it. I'll watch it tomorrow. But I happened to be up pretty late that evening. So like at midnight, scrolling through Twitter, and I saw Ki-Adi-Mundi. Like I knew he was going to be in the episode because I was scrolling Twitter before I watched it. And I saw people complaining about his age. So then the next day I watched the episode, see him, literally 15 seconds, type his name in. And it took 15 seconds because I misspelled his name the first time. And then I went to Wikipedia, I saw his species age range, and I thought, huh. So not only did you get the guy that said the line that everyone is harping on, but you also are changing his age. Like, why? You could have gotten Yaddle, who's the Yoda species, whatever they are, is known to live for hundreds of years. You could have gotten her. Anyone else on that council whose age range is that time, or like you said, it could have been Ki-Adi-Mundi Senior. Anything, but you chose a character who, according to the reference books, and I know someone says, well, they're fan runs, so it doesn't actually count, which I did believe, but then I thought I did a little bit more digging, and like technically they have canonized it, and they've I think as of like yesterday they updated it to now his species lives this long. And I know that's causing way more controversy because now they're like, you guys are just changing things to
now you're
fit your show.
right.
And again, is the age of this Jedi Master that I genuinely did not care about, mainly because the only time I heard him talk, I knew he was wrong. You think about him in episode 1, and it's like, well, he's wrong though. And then the next time you see him, he's getting killed in Order 66. So it wasn't like I had a big attachment to him. So when I heard that they changed his age, I'm like, well, that's odd. But it didn't ruin the show. But I think we can have a critical conversation and be like, yeah, why did you do that?
Why did you,
Why
right,
him?
right. And it's like, okay, the date is easy to change, but you can't change his statement
Right.
in episode 1. Like, are you going to have his mind wiped? Like, is his,
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
and the
how are
thing
we
is, it's
going to
like, okay,
justify this?
if you do that, I mean, okay, they have, there's one of the Legends books that I've read, they, one of the characters, and I do believe it's a jet. Yeah, it's Revan. Okay.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Right. Well, they might, they wipe, the Jedi go
Yeah,
in
because
and
he didn't
wipe.
know he was a Sith.
Right. So they wipe, right. Another proof of like how they're not the best.
Right.
But I mean, like, they can, that is proven that they can go in and
Yeah.
mind wipe. So you're going to have to not only now change his age, but you're not going to have to, if you don't do that, people are going to be like, yeah, I mean, outside of that, because I think I think it's, again, it's pretty big when you have, like, again, it's a major character, not a major, but a character, again, that speaks a line that does kind of change,
Everything.
a course of storyline. The acting was not great. For some reason, it was more stilted in this one. It was the lines that I felt like were being delivered. Maybe it's just the one guy.
Which one?
The one you don't like. And I give you,
Yord?
yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not a
He's
fan of him.
no, he's very, yeah, and then the oh, I can't, again, this is really terrible. The character that's plotting with May. Like, now
Oh,
his
the
line
one from
delivery
the
wasn't,
Good Place.
yeah, his line delivery wasn't bad, but he's definitely sus in it
Yeah, he
because he
is
kept saying
sus.
things.
His delivery wasn't as good, but I'm trying to figure out if he's
Why?
playing a character that is supposed to, I don't know. His whole character is weird to me. Yours
Right.
is easier to hate. I just don't like him. And then, as I know, some people, let me clarify, some people don't like Yord because in an interview he said he was a Star Wars fan, and then he said Anakin blew up the Death Star, and everyone's like, hire actors that actually know Star Wars. Here's my thing.
Right.
I could care less if the actors know Star Wars. If they are fans, that's great. I just
Right.
want good actors. And you look at the
Sure.
old movies, Sir Alec Guinness knew nothing about Star Wars. He was in Star Wars. They have
Right.
interviews with Harrison Ford. He clearly does not care about Star Wars. So that's not why I don't like York. I just don't like his delivery, and I don't like him and
Mm-mm.
the Killmonger haircut, which is a whole thing I could get into on a different day. But the Maze partner guy,
Come here. I think that's,
yeah,
yeah. I
I
just, yeah.
it's weird. Like he knows the Sith code. He knows how to brew poison like pretty quickly.
Right.
He has communicated with this Sith or evil
Dark.
Jedi,
Right.
this dark force. So it's like, what? We need to know more about your character. And you would think someone who knows all of that
Right.
and has done all of this, has gone into this deadly forest, his character would be played differently. So then I think, is the actor making a choice to act this
Right.
way? Or are you just not good at your dialogue delivery?
Exactly. Like, I'm like, okay, is this like an actor choice on vocal delivery, or will he like be proven to have been hiding something later? Like,
Right.
because it's odd now, like the looks that he's giving, and like, if it's a decision on his part, they needed to tell him to dial that back, because if people are going
Yeah.
to start squinting at him. But he, because you don't see him when this dark force shows up in the
Right.
last scene. He does when they go, like when they go to fight, or his reflexes and ducking from,
Yeah.
like he's got the fighting skills and stuff done. He's not like, if I feel like the decision is to make you think like, oh, he's just this bumbling fool, and then bam, then he's the bad guy. But it's like, I already also didn't like May's decision of just instantly seeing her sister, and she's like, well, it's all different now. She's like, I'm not going to go through with this. And it's like, you made a pretty hefty decision to go kill all the, like, I need to know either why you decided to kill Jedi and why your sister's death or life would have
Well,
changed.
maybe she thought that they killed her, and so she was on a revenge tour, but now seeing her alive makes her not want to kill them, which, yeah.
Sure, but then why not at that moment reconnect with your sister? Like, if, because then she's telling him, like, I'm gonna go turn myself in. Well, you had a moment.
Yeah, exactly. The
Right,
last
you had,
2 episodes ago, whenever they met,
right,
if you didn't know she was alive, seeing her,
right,
you would have immediately either A, surrendered and tried to be with her, or if you realize, well, I've already murdered 2 Jedi, so I've got to get out of here, fine. But she should have done that, and then the next episode, not be on the hunt for the Wookiee.
right,
Like, if you didn't know she was alive, so you killed these Jedi, you on your revenge tour, you see your sister, you realize she's not dead, but you realize you still killed 2 Jedi. Yeah, okay, I love you, but I can't stay. You take
right,
off. You should be like, okay, so I'm done with my revenge tour. The Wookiee's fine. But you went to his planet anyway with the knowledge that your sister's alive, got to the planet, got deep into the forest, and then was like, I've been thinking, my
right.
sister being alive changes everything. Like, you didn't think about that on the way here?
Really, it's a lot like this. Right. It's just, it's a very odd choice for me. It was very, I thought, oh no, I got that sense in my stomach of, oh no, you're going to do this at the end, aren't you? You're going to have her talk her out of,
Yeah.
you know, like somebody's going to be talked down from making a very bad decision. Whereas I'm like, go ahead and let them make the bad decision. Like, let
Yep.
them do it. Let the fallout happen. Let things, let it get bad. Let it get nasty. Because again, and now, I mean, I know there's still supposed to be maybe 1 or 2 more flashback scenes, because
Yeah.
we need to find out why it's been shown in trailers and other footage that the Wookiee, and I'm blanking on his name now.
Started with a K, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, Kelneka.
Yeah.
Okay. Why he would have been slashing his lightsaber at,
Corbin.
yes, Torben. Yeah, like, and you know, like the theory is like that he was possessed, and then you see all the witch symbols. Can you hear my dogs?
This is the first time that I've actually been able to hear them.
They're upstairs wrestling. But there's so clearly something took over, you know, because like he attacks him, and then you see all the witch symbols
Yeah.
in his ship where he's hiding out, and he's clearly like isolated himself from everybody. So either
That's the Jedi move. Things don't go my way, I'm gonna self-exile on
in the
a
forest.
hidden planet. Like, that's just the move.
Right, where there's a lot of trees. That's how they should all just go searching for each other. Is maybe that's why they couldn't find Luke. Like, there's the reason Darth Vader couldn't find Luke, is he was like, well, wait a minute, you're out there in the middle of the sun in the sand, and we all hide in the trees. We know
we
this
hide in
by
the
now.
trees. You didn't get the memo? What are you doing? Exile is fine, but there's a way we do it.
Right, forest or swamp, son. You got
Go
to
to
pick one.
indoor, sir.
Exactly, you got to pick one, and it's not in the dunes.
No, I definitely agreed with that. When she made that choice to change, my first thought was eye roll, because we both were like, no, like, let's lean into the darkness. And then my second thought was, you kind of made that really quickly, and your justification is my sister being alive changes everything. It's like, well, you knew she was alive and you still fled to that planet. I can understand you not wanting to reunite with her right there because you realized you've killed 2 Jedi. But if you were going to leave, you should have just been on the run and like some isolated planet. All right, I need to make my next move now that she's alive. But you continued with the plan, and while you were there, decided that you were going to
like change. You couldn't have gotten a message to her in any other kind of way saying, I didn't know you were alive, we need to meet. Something like that.
Yeah,
it's like I said, when she did that, I thought, oh no, that is you. again, to just be like, oh, I'm just going to quit this quest, like this,
Yeah.
and done. Like you're clearly working for somebody who wants Jedi killed. Like you're committing murder in the galaxy, and you're now just like, I'm tired of this. Like that's not how this
Yeah.
works. That's not how any of this
No, you're
works. Like,
in. You're in it now.
right? Like,
You don't get to just walk away.
right, like that's you. Or here's a thought. I mean, like I know that they were both convinced each other had died. Maybe before you take up the because again, how would you have known I it's getting to the point where I need an episode with at least a couple answers, because you're
I
starting
am
to now
all for
compound the
murder
questions.
mystery thriller type things, but if you're going week to week, eventually some you don't need all the questions answered, but eventually some of these little threads
Right.
need to be tied off
Be-
before we get to the end.
because if May was taken to the Jedi Council and trained as a Jedi, it seems to me like she wasn't being hidden. So for May to completely not know that her sister was alive before she took on a murder quest, and if she had been, because especially she had been stalking all of these Jedi who knew of her sister,
Right.
like she knew, I mean, for them to have never like heard her sister's name ever met, like again, those are my criticism. Mine's not
Yeah.
like, oh, there's fire in space, because again, like that's it. Again, you just get to the point where you're like, okay, we get it. You're review bombing just
Yes.
on because you think it's funny and you don't have anything else to do in
Right.
your life. But like, there are legitimate things that just like you really do need to answer some. Like when you start to compound questions and you're not very forthcoming with any of the answers, is where my issue lays
This is
with
where we
these things.
get to the writing criticism. This has nothing to do with the gender or
Right.
race of the colors you have casted. This has nothing to do with the number of those people you've casted or
Right.
whatever, or like you said, the fire in space. Like this comes down to people who we are not review bombing. We want to enjoy this.
Right.
At this point, the writing itself, not the small things, but the actual things that impact the greater universe, and then the stuff that impacts just the story that you are telling. Like the Kiadi Mundi thing is you having to make things connect to a universe that already exists. But then the stuff with Ocean May, this is your story. Like
Right.
you wrote this. So
Right.
my criticism now is on the writing, not of the other factors that
Yeah.
are leading the charge on criticism, but the actual way it connects to the universe that I love. And then on a smaller scale, just this show in general that I want to enjoy, but
That I
we
want
need to
to
see some
see
answers and the
you,
answers need to make sense.
right. That I want to see you pay, at least acknowledge that there's material out, that there's source material out there, that again,
Yeah.
that this stuff can be Googled, and like there's information out there. And that again, I believe is like, that's on you not hiring people that can back check this. That's
Right.
like that's on you, because there are enough people out there that can do this for you, and you have all the money. You should be using it for fact checkers as far as when these things,
100%.
and just like, okay, this is how we go. And like, does anybody have any problems with, like just, and then like you need almost like, okay, like when here's what the storyline is for this episode. Does anybody see any holes in here that we might need to, that the average person might need to address?
Well, that's why they hired not a writer that was not a Star Wars fan and hadn't seen Star Wars. And at first everybody groaned, but they said, no, no, no. Like our writers are Star Wars fans, but we have this person or these two people that know nothing about Star Wars to basically check us where they can look at this subjectively and not how it connects to the greater story, but just this story. Does these two things make sense?
Right.
And yeah, when you've got your sister who was taken to the Jedi Temple, and maybe the other Jedi assumed she was dead, but you didn't know she was dead. You didn't know she wasn't dead, but if you were able to stalk these other Jedi and this, I mean, obviously, Osha ended up leaving and becoming a space mechanic. So maybe, yeah, it was a little bit harder to find her. It's a big galaxy, sure. But you would think at some point she would have found out. And let's just say for story's sake, she didn't, because she was watching the Jedi but wasn't too close. I can accept that because they had kind of moved on from Osha as well. Like maybe, I don't know how long she'd been out of the Jedi Order. So maybe by the time May started training, Osha had already left and become a space mechanic, and the other Jedi weren't talking about a girl who left the Order anymore. So I could even accept that. But I think my biggest issue is kind of like you said, how quickly, I mean, like you have killed Jedi, you have dedicated, this is your life's mission. And what
Again,
feels like in the span of however long they were in the woods, an hour or two, you decided, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to turn myself in. And this hooded figure who scares the crap out of me, it's fine. It'll be fine.
he won't
Like,
find me.
yeah, way too, that
Out
was
of left
way
field.
too quick. It just
It
out of
was
left field. You threw it in there. Like, that is something that I kind of was like, hold on a minute. And then, yes, with the Kiadi-Mundi thing, while I don't think it ruins the episode or the series, I do feel like a quick Google search could have shown you he wouldn't even be alive right now. But even more importantly, because again, that part I can kind of like, you changed his age so he lives longer. Like, you shouldn't have needed to do that, but fine. I could look past that. But knowing that he is the one that said the line, and now he's brought into this thing, like, you have to convince, either he's getting his mind wiped, or he is convinced that what happened was just a splinter cell operation and it
they have
wasn't
to prove
actually.
one or the other. They have to prove that it
Yeah.
wasn't a Sith, or they have to prove that his mind is wiped at some time, because you can't, because then people, that is a legitimate criticism
Yeah.
for how you ended that.
Yeah.
So I think on that note, we split it pretty good on both. We've got another episode of Game of Thrones or House of Dragon coming up on Sunday. Will you be watching it, or do you
I will
follow
be
it?
watching it. I think my game this week is at like 6. So I should be getting back a quick rinse off because sand gets everywhere. I hate sand. And then I will probably be like 15 minutes behind everyone else, but that's fine. No, there is one of the weeks I'm really hoping it gets rained out, that like it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, and I'm not happy about it. I'm just gonna be I'm going to watch it, that either I'm watching it late or I'm waking up at like 6 a.m. and I'm watching it. Like, there should never be a scenario where I more than 24 hours passes, and even that is generous. Like, if it comes out on Sunday night, I feel like the latest I will watch it is like Monday morning, mid morning, like 10 a.m. But
It's
yeah,
fair. Like it's, and if you don't, then you have to stay off social media. Like that's
exactly. Yeah, it is. Yes, I'm not gonna be mad at people tweeting about it. Like, I realize I'm the one that signed up for this
right.
league. This one's on me, so I will do my self-imposed social media ban.
Nice. All right. So until then, next week, yeah,
Oh,
we're good. So yeah, lots
yes.
of stuff. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
You can find us at Entertain Mix Pod. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok,
Yes.
YouTube. So we are all
Yes.
over the place. You can find clips, subscribe, like, give us
Yes.
comments. Tell us what you'd like to, if you agree with us, disagree with us. We'd love
Yep.
to hear it. So
Love
until
it.
next time, bye.
See ya.